Thank you everybody for being here today. My name is Carrie Knuth. I am the Assistant Director of Student Life for the Ivy Tech Fort Wayne campus and also the advisor for our Campus Activities Board. Our office provides a plethora of all kinds of programming for our students to enjoy throughout your semester experience with us. Today we are joined by GOAL Amigos, one of our student organizations here, and I'm going to introduce them here in just a moment and turn it over to them. But they are your host for today. So just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. We do ask that while we're moving through our presentation here that you do remain muted so that it doesn't interact with any of our speakers and our panelists today. I am also recording today as well, so anybody who wants to view this presentation after we're completed and after we're done, I will have that information available to you on the event link where you guys RSVP'd, and then you can also always check it out on our YouTube channel, which is link.ivytech.edu/TitanTube. So after the event today, I will have some information on how you can log your participation. Participating in our events throughout the semester will gain you, lots of knowledge and lots of entertainment, but it will also enter you into a drawing for our end of the semester prize for participating in programming. So I will share that information with you after we finish the event, so stay tuned. You'll also be able to see that on the recording as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joanne Alvarez. She is our advisor for GOAL Amigos and also our director for student success and retention here at the college. So Joanne, welcome.
Good afternoon. As Carrie said, my name is Joanne Alvarez and I'm the advisor to GOAL Amigos. GOAL stands for Graduating Outstanding Achieving Latinos and Friends, because as we know, our friends don't always look like us. And so I want to say big thank you to all of you for joining us today. A special thank you to our panelists and our moderator who have joined us. Before we get started though, I wanted to quickly share just a little bit about both GOAL Amigos and Hispanic Leadership Coalition of Northeast Indiana, which are the two organizations that have come together to bring you this event. So while GOAL Amigos is a student organization of Ivy Tech, and its job is to provide support and encouragement so that our students get to graduation, its mission is to educate, engage, and support our Ivy Tech students by promoting events and leadership opportunities that advance the Latino culture. Because of its mission, it's important to partner with other organizations, which we have in this case, the Hispanic Leadership Coalition of Northeast Indiana, whose mission is to empower the Latino community through education and leadership. So with that, I want to turn over today's event to HLCNI, or Hispanic Leadership Coalition board member, Lauro Zuniga. Take it away, sir.
Hi, everyone. I'm on this panel with you all. Thank you all for attending. As Carrie said, you guys are going to learn so much from these panels, from these conversations, and it's essential that we pay attention. And just some house rules: please be aware of the sensitivity of the topics at hand. Please be respectful, and don't judge people based off their lived experiences. But a little bit about me: my name is Lauro Zuniga, as Joanne said, and I'm a board member of the Hispanic Leadership Coalition of Northeast Indiana. I'm a resident here of Northeast Indiana myself. I actually work in education, and I'm very passionate about helping my Latino community, have access to a lot of opportunities that, for me, when I was growing up, were either scarce or weren't there. So definitely excited to hear from our panelists too about, how even though they have come from some trying circumstances, they haven't let that, stop them from achieving much more than what a lot of people would think that they would. But yeah, that's a little bit about me, and really just, I'm really excited to hear from our panelists. We're gonna get to hear their introductions here in a bit, and from then we're gonna hear their personal stories about them being DACA recipients, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, program that President Obama signed into effect in the summer of 2012. We're going to get to hear about what that means and what that is, and basically how they've lived their life since then. So with further ado, I really want to start off with introduction. So for our panelists, and I'll call on each one of you, could you please just state your name, your current field of work, what university you attended and what you majored in, if you went to Ivy Tech, what program did you graduate from and what year? And then also, what has been the impact for that GOAL Amigos has had on you? So we'll go ahead and start with Jose.
So, hello everybody. My name is Jose Ruiz. I'm not a native of Fort Wayne, but I grew up most of my life here. What I studied at Ivy Tech was business administration. I graduated from Ivy Tech in 2018. I went on to get a bachelor's degree in business management at Purdue Fort Wayne. I'm currently enrolled in my MBA at Purdue Fort Wayne. I work for a company called Sherwin-Williams. You guys might have heard of it. They're the paint company. I do sales, and I'm in the management trainee program. And then Lauro, you threw so much at me that I forgot what else you all asked, but I think that's pretty much my introduction.
Just one last thing, were you part of GOAL Amigos while you were at Ivy Tech, and what impact has it had on you?
So I would scurry around the little hallways, get to my class, go to work, like most college kids. I would see Joanne slipping in the corner sometimes. She'll be like, hey, you should come to this meetings and stuff. And then one day I ran into my high school friends that went to Ivy Tech, and they were a part of it. And I actually thought it was a soccer club. I didn't know we were doing big stuff out here. I would see the little signs when I would be going to my class, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I like to play soccer. I should join these guys. These guys probably can't handle me. I got some moves. And but when I got there, I saw it was serious business, so I was over there okay. And then the impact that it had on me was I met some really fantastic people. I got a lot of help for just college support, other kids going through what I'm going through. And then Joanne, a very good mentor, somebody that I admire a lot. So that's what GOAL Amigos provided for me.
Awesome. Karina, let's hear it from you. So your name, your current job, what university you graduated from, and your degree program, if you went to Ivy Tech, and also how did you hear about GOAL Amigos, and what's been your involvement and your impact on it?
Yes, my name is Karina Vasquez, and I attended Ivy Tech back in 2017, and I graduated the same year with a degree in general studies. Then I went to Manchester University in their pre-med program and got a biochemistry degree with a minor in Spanish. And right now, my current job is at Eli Lilly, a pharmaceutical company down in Indy, as a scientist in small synthesis design and development. How did GOAL impact on me? I think that community that was built from it was a great impact in my life, because until this day, I still have some of the same friends, and that connections, my network was the main thing. But I also gained a great mentor, which was Joanne, that has been with me throughout ups and downs, and then as well as other people that helped me be the person that I am today.
Awesome. And last but not least, Mr. Brayan Castillo.
Hello everyone, as Laura said, my name is Brayan Castillo. Right now I am currently working at Lincoln Financial Group here in town. I'm in project management in the call center, particularly in the bilingual call center. I graduated also from Ivy Tech in 2018 with a degree in business. And then I transferred that following fall to Purdue Fort Wayne, and I received my bachelor's in organizational leadership in May. And so I just recently graduated, recently started a new job, and all that fun stuff, adulting stuff I like to say. But GOAL Amigos has definitely been impacted, it impacted my life. I kind of started, like Jose said, kind of by accident. I wanted to join student org, and at the time there wasn't too many out there. And I found out through Joanne's daughter that she worked at Ivy Tech and was starting a student org. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's check it out. First day I went, my first meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, Joanne asked me if I can be in leadership. So, coming from the organization, we had 3 people. I remember in that meeting, it was just 3 people. And then right away I said, yeah, why not? And so I moved my way up from secretary to vice president. And then I was president of GOAL Amigos for almost 2 years during my stay at Ivy Tech. And so it's definitely helped me network, be more confident in myself, and really practice leadership skills that I was able to use within my internships, and now I'm able to use it at my current job.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that we're going to segue into the personal stories of our panelists, because like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, the purpose of this webinar is really to learn more about their perspective and their experience with the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program that President Obama signed into order in the summer of 2012. And what basically DACA does is grants deferred action for deportation proceedings to children who came here when they were young. And we're going to get to hear more about the minutiae of the program from our panelists, but I'd really like to now segue into the personal stories, because there's a lot of value in hearing from, first person perspectives about how this program has really changed a lot of people's lives for the better, and how it's done so many wonderful things for them. And I'd really like to start off with Karina, because she's working for Eli Lilly, which is one of the most prestigious companies in our state, and not only the state, but like the country and the world. And we're so thankful to have a Latina, representing us there. So Karina, please just tell us your personal story. Just tell us, what your journey has been like prior to DACA, and then with DACA, and then just in general,
Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay. It didn't want to work, but well, like everything started about 13 years ago when I was 10 years old. I was only a kid, so I didn't know what it meant to move to a whole different country. So my mom actually was here for like 5 to 10 years before I moved here with my sister. And we used to live with my grandparents. So the situation back home wasn't ideal. Like my mom was a single mom and my dad just left us. So we didn't have any income coming in. So my mom had to get a job, and the only way she could do that was to come to the United States to find new opportunities. So she was here by herself for 5 years, and then she decided to go back when I was 10, and she decided for us to come here. Now, I didn't know what the decision meant for me and like the effects that I will have for the rest of my life. So I moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it was very tough because I didn't speak English at all. So I had to start from zero. And I mean, everyone in elementary already had a pretty good handle on the language. So that was a big transition for me. I am a very academic driven person. So I made it my goal to learn English and excel in my academics. So that was how I was putting all my energy towards just getting good grades and being a good kid, so maybe I will be able to go to college. My main goal was always to be a doctor, so I always knew that what it took was for me to go to school. I was in high school when I realized that I didn't have a legal status. So all of my friends were getting their driver's license and, driving a car and planning to go to college. But at that point, when I approached my mom about it and just be like, hey, can I have my social security? She was like, actually, you don't have one. Like you're not like a citizen, you're not a resident, and there's no way for you to start driving or maybe even go to college. So my mom was like, as much as it hurts me, like you might not even be able to be a doctor like you wanted to. So obviously my parents came from a very humble background, and we did struggle a lot with economically. So it was very hard for me to imagine myself in college. Then after Obama passed the DACA, I finally grasped that I could go to college if I wanted to, but it was going to be a little harder. And DACA gave like so much hope for me. Like I think my mom puts it as a metaphor that my wings were like broken when I found out I was not going to be able to go to college. But then like when Obama came around, he gave me so much hope that I could like do so much with just a social security number and being able to get my license. So I remember like sitting down when I was in high school with my mom in my living room, and we were filling out a immigration application. Now I was a kid, like I don't think any kid should go through that, but I had to read all the legal terms and understand them. And my mom sometimes would get frustrated with me because she was like, you know English, like you should know this. And I'm like, no, mom, like these words are hard and they use very technical terms that sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So like Google was my best friend during that time. And I finally sent my application, and it's like literally 50-50 if they accept you or not. So thankfully I got accepted and I got my fingerprints taken. So we had to get our fingerprints taken every 2 years, and it takes a lot of work because you have to pay a fee of $485, and it seems like it keeps getting higher and higher every year. That you have to pay $485 every 2 years to get a renewal. You have to go through a background check, fingerprints taken, and just recently they switched it that now we have to do it every year. So it's $485 every single year. Now, I was very happy to have this opportunity, but I also didn't know that I was gonna have to know how to manage my money and know, like, stay on top of things. So then we had to go to the Social Security office to get my Social Security, and that was very tough because I spoke English, but my parents were not that well in that language, so it was very hard for them to communicate. Then I finally told my counselor that I had a DACA, because the very hard part about this was that my counselor kind of brushed me off when I told him I didn't have a Social Security. He was like, oh, well, like, there's no way you could go to college. So he kind of like pushed me to the side and just told me to come back when I had a Social Security, which is not as easy as many people think. So when I came back, he helped me get through college, but it was already a little late. So I ended up taking a gap year. So I don't get any financial help from federal loans or any local loans. So I ended up having to take a year off and having to work at KFC as a manager there. That was like the worst year of my life, honestly, because I was working, well, first of all, fast food as it is, it's very tough, but I was working 60 to 70 hours a week for me to be able to pay for college and have a better education than my parents. Now, during that week, during that year, I had no life, like I had no friends, I had no support system. And I remember crying to my mom, like almost every day, like telling her I feel stuck in my life and I couldn't, like I had a Social Security now, but I didn't know how to go back to college. So I used to look down upon Ivy Tech a lot because I was like, well, like, does a doctor really go there? And then I went there and it like changed my life. Like, I met great people. I met more DACA recipients that I didn't know existed. And everybody had a similar road that I had, or even like worse. And we kind of met up. And then after that, it was like step by step. Like, DACA kept coming up. Like, if I didn't renew my DACA, I could lose my job. If I didn't renew my DACA, scholarships wouldn't take me. If like my DACA gets taken away, like, I lose everything. So every year I had to work extra hard to pay for college, but also to make sure that I could stay in the country. Then when I transferred to Manchester, it became very real that I was DACA and I was different than everyone else, because like no one knew about it. And when scholarships came up, a lot of scholarships rejected me because I was DACA, because they didn't know if I was going to be here next year. So they were like, you're great on paper, like you have a 4.0, you're doing all of this, but it's not good enough. We need you to be a citizen, which is not easy. Then when I was about to graduate in Manchester, Eli Lilly, thanks to Brayan, I got an internship. And I explained them my situation, and I was afraid that they were going to turn me down because of my status. And I told them, you know, I have to renew every 2 years. I have to do this and this. And they were like, oh, okay, like, sounds good. Just keep up with that. And now I'm working at the company. But during this time as well, I bought a house with my boyfriend. And that was another struggle that I had to realize that it was very tough for us, DACA. We had great credit, we had great savings, we had everything you were asked for a house, but we didn't have the citizenship or the residency that they were asking for. It took my whole process of getting a house, it took about 1.5 years for me to get a house. And usually doesn't even take more than 6-7 months. So that was like double of what usually it is. And I will have to explain what DACA was to every person I will come across. And most of the people didn't know what it was or how they will help me. So that was very tough. But now I have a stable job, and I think all the sacrifices that my parents made were very worth it. And looking back, I think I'm grateful that my parents made that choice, that difficult choice of coming to a new country and seeking new opportunities, and not knowing the language and not knowing if they could like feed us that night. but they make sure that me and my sister had opportunities that they never even dream of. So yeah, that's my story.
Beautiful. And I think one of the important things that you raised, Karina, was how many people weren't aware of what DACA was or what it means. And I think that really drives home the purpose of this panel discussion, and really the information being presented is because the more that we create, awareness of it, and explain to people that there are different documented statuses, people with different documented statuses in our country, the better off we'll be. But with that, I'd really love to hear from Jose. Please tell us your personal story, your DACA journey prior to, during, and then after, and where you are now.
Okay, so I kind of similar story to Karina. I'm sure many of you guys were from Indiana. You hear about the 21st century scholarships and stuff. So I was in. They brought us all down to the cafeteria. I was in there being bad probably, and my teacher, he was kind of, I was a bad kid, so he already had me like right next to him, and he said like, listen up, because he knew I was bright. He knew I was bright, but I just was like misbehaving and stuff. So he's like, listen up, because this is how you're gonna get to college and stuff. And like my sister is a little older than me, so I kind of already knew what it was going to be. So I knew I wasn't going to be eligible. So I was just goofing off. And he got really mad at me. He got seriously mad at me. He like pulled me to the side and told me like that this was serious, that like this was like how I was going to get to college and stuff, and like be able to afford it. If not, I was going to miss out my chance or whatever. And my whole time I'm like, this guy's crazy. That doesn't apply to me. Like I can't get no 21st century scholarship. So it all, like, they would keep calling me down to the office like, hey, fill out your 21st century scholarship, because this is like, because I think it's only till middle school or something. And I was like, yeah, that's not me. Like I can't fill it out. Like I really can't. I would, thank you, but I can't. And they were like seriously mad at me. Like I remember it got to the point where like 4 people had like not filled out their 21st century scholarship, and it was like mostly like kids that were like bad like me, but they were also like not as smart as me. So I was like, what am I doing in the room with these guys? Like I gotta get out of here. But it was because I didn't have a social security number to fill it out with. And that was when I like started realizing how my life was probably gonna be. So in that time, I went through school. I kept getting decent grades. I started learning how to like make some money. I worked with my pops a lot. We were doing like construction, painting stuff, all kinds of stuff. And I actually was able to get my DACA pretty early on, because I was at like time where it kind of like hit right in the sweet spot, like how Karina was talking about with the licenses and all that stuff. So it helped me out a lot, because I don't know, a lot of people don't realize, but like to get your license and stuff, your license plates, you go to like the BMV, pay, you get smoked out with like what they charge you. But in all reality, like people without licenses, they get charged even more. And I remember that because my parents, they would always go to like little agencies, like do the runaround to try and get some license plates. So that even something like that, some stuff you would never think about, but like DACA and stuff, with that, it helped me get a license. I can get my own license plates. I didn't have to go pay the runaround through the third party agency. I always think about the little things like that, how DACA has influenced me. In all reality, when I think about it, I probably wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't have DACA. I probably wouldn't have gone to college. I think I still would have been successful, but who knows, right? It's like, you never know. But DACA is probably the single most important thing that's changed my life. So if you guys can think about what's that thing in my life that's changed it forever, that thing for me would be DACA. So I have like that kind of story. In terms of how DACA is helping me out today, similar to Karina's story, renewing your DACA for your employment purposes, as well as like driving and all that stuff. It's pretty important to stay on top of that stuff. Like I couldn't imagine having my DACA lapse. So that's like that's like a worst case scenario, like a worst nightmare kind of deal. But I think we're gonna get into further questions about like how, what's like the most important thing about DACA and stuff like that. So I'll save those kind of things for later.
For sure. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that and your personal story. I think, I think success is a very personal thing. So I know that you regardless of your situation, you would have been successful through your own merit. So I'm very happy for your current situation though. But now, Brayan, please cap us off with your personal story about DACA prior, during, and then after. And yeah.
So for me, so I was born in Guatemala, down in Central America. I came here to the United States when I was about a little less than 3 years old. We decided, well, my parents decided, I didn't really decide. You know, you hear a lot of good things about the U.S. You know, you can make something of yourself. My family had friends and other families in Fort Wayne, so we decided, well, my parents decided to go down, come up here to Fort Wayne, and so ever since then I've lived here. So I think I consider myself kind of like a Fort Waynian. I think that's the term I want to use, but yeah, I mean, I went to school here all throughout my life, and I'm still living here now. You know, when I was a student, even since elementary school, my parents instilled me, you know, you have to get educated. We didn't, as they like to do, we didn't run around across the country just for you to not like do something with yourself. And I remember in 8th grade, my dad would take me to, he does like a construction and drywall and all that fun stuff. And he would take me on Saturdays with him. And I hated every minute of it. I hated it. I dreaded Saturdays. When it was Friday, I was like, I don't want it to be Saturday because I knew my dad was going to take me to work. But honestly, that was the best thing he could have done because I hated it every minute of it. Waking up at 6 a.m., coming home probably 6 p.m., being a 14-year-old, I hated it. And so he told me, you know, this is what I do for a living. And it's hard work. It really is. Anyone that's in that field, I really salute them because it's very hard work. And so he said, you know, if you don't get educated, this is what you're going to be doing. And so I always remember that throughout high school. So I did everything that you're supposed to do in high school. I was on the honors classes. I did extra stuff. I was in the soccer team, National Honor Society. I did like those college tours that they had and went down to different schools, like, you know, and I had colleagues in my class, like they're all going to IU, Purdue, Butler, you know, these big schools here in Indiana, even out of state. And so my mentality was, okay, well, I'm going to go to a big school, prestigious school, because I'm in the same room with my classmates. Why can't I? And so one day when I was 16 years old, at lunchtime, one of my friends, he just got his driver's license. And I know before then, a lot of my classmates did like the driving permit, like the driver's ed. They all had their permits. And so I was like 16 and a half. I think I was going into 17. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, this is something like as a teenager, that's like a big thing in your teenage years, is that once you get your driver's license, you know, that's the first big step of adulthood. And, you know, getting your car and getting your first job, all that fun stuff in high school. So after school, I went and I talked to my mom and I said, you know, hey, what can I do? Like, I was very proactive, like, let's go to the BMV branch and let's see if I can, you know, schedule a test for the driver's license. And so, you know, I went on and on, like, oh, my friend, they got it. And so once I was done talking, my mom said, you know, we can't do that. And so I was like, why? And she said, well, you don't have a social security number. And I think from that point, that's when I really knew what it meant to be undocumented. Because I've had these conversations before when, like, I was little. My parents were very upfront with me about my status, but at the time, it wasn't something that you talked about. Like, you kept it a secret. And so I kept it a secret until that time. And, you know, until it really affects you, you don't really realize, like, you know, having this series of numbers really divides your life here. And so from there, I remember when DACA came, in June of 2012, I remember it perfectly. I came back from soccer practice over the summer and I came home and my mom had the news on and she said, you know, the president, he signed an executive order for DACA. Apparently this is a program for you to get a SOCH. And like, I remember I just like everything like paused at that moment. Like I like cried right there and then. Like I could not believe I was gonna had an opportunity to get a soch, and like I pinched myself. I'm like, I have to be drinking. And so, you know, that day just changed my life. And since then, it was a very rigorous process to get my DACA. But from there, like Jose and Karina said, we don't get financial aid. I'm the oldest out of my siblings, so I kind of had to figure everything out by accident. And, you know, I've always been a person to like look things up. If I don't know something, you know, ask. Like that's something my parents always told me. If you know something, if you don't know that, find out, or, you know, be proactive about it. And I've always been that way. So I think that's helped me with my success. But it was not easy. I worked full time. I worked at Walgreens full time while I was going to school. And, you know, there was a point when I transferred to Purdue Fort Wayne, I was working at Walgreens. I was interning at Parkview, and then I was going to school full time and doing all these other extra things, and kind of just juggling this crazy life that I had for a couple of years so I can just pay for school, but still maintaining a high like GPA, have my grades on point, because, you know, we're limited in scholarships. There's few and far between, especially there's private scholarships, but they're so competitive. And a lot of the private ones don't require you to do FAFSA. And I think that's what makes it very competitive, because, you know, there's 3 of us, we're all fighting to get like that $1,000 scholarship. And like, it's little things like that, like the scholarships, you know, $1,000, I could work a little less if I won that scholarship. So making sure I was saving up money, getting my grades. And I think it helps you, like Jose said, like without DACA, the things might have been a little different. I think with DACA, it helps you grow up a little quicker. You know, being 18, I knew right away, I need to start working a lot to save for college. And, you know, luckily I had a supportive family that they helped me along the way, and kind of came across GOAL Amigos, and all that kind of trickled down to eventually me being in position I am now. But a lot of people aren't as lucky as myself or us in the panel, because some people don't have that family support. They might come from a one-parent family, or they just can't afford going to school. Even no matter how much you work, you know, kind of life just happens. And so I consider myself pretty blessed in that sense, with the DACA. And I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't have it any other way, because I think it's shaped me for who I am right now.
For sure, yeah. And I think you bring up a phenomenal point, Brayan, in your story. And it's that there's a lot of, even though DACA is a great thing and it's a program, if I'm not mistaken, it's also not, you can't apply to be a citizen. You know, it's just deferment, you know, from being deported, basically. And that there's a lot of strict parameters in order to qualify for DACA. So like you said, Brayan, there's a lot of people who sadly didn't qualify, even when that announcement was made, because of the parameters of the executive order of the requirements in order to get it. So it's definitely, you know, about being conscious about that. You know, whenever we want to get involved in the community, you know, also know that you should be able to help a lot of people. I know one of the great things about HLCNI, the nonprofit we're all a part of, is that, you know, we have a DACA renewal fund where we're trying to help more DACA recipients, you know, with their renewals now that they're yearly. So definitely check us out for that, because it's a great way to, you know, do good for your community. And I'm speaking to our viewers right now, and not so much our panelists, but you know, if these stories move you to the point where you're just like, wow, like what else can I do? Well, you know, that's definitely one avenue alongside of getting civically engaged and knowing, you know, how to create a pathway to citizenship. But just wanted to let our viewers know that you can submit questions through the chat. We're going to have a Q&A from our viewers towards the end of this webinar. But for now, I'm going to pivot to some questions that I had for our panelists. And Brayan touched upon this in a little bit earlier, but I'd really like to hear from Jose and Karina, and Brayan too, if you'd like to elaborate. But like, do you remember where you were when the program was announced in 2012? And what did you feel? And You know, I myself, I was in college when it was announced. I'm not a DACA recipient myself, but I was actually volunteering with an organization on campus called the Minority Affairs Council. And I remember my university had like event for it. Like there was a viewing of the executive order because they knew something big was coming. So it's something that's very present in my mind. And I just remember helping with the workshops afterwards, helping translate and whatnot. But definitely would love to hear from your perspectives, because I think it's something beautiful, you know, to hear when your life basically changes. So we'll start with Jose.
So I think going to go into the ninth grade when it was coming out, which there was like a little parameter in there. I think you had to be like 15 to apply, something like that. And my parents actually waited a little bit, a couple months. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like in the summertime, and they waited a couple months until I turned 15, and then that's when me and my sister both jointly filed our individual cases, right? But and we sent it off. And I remember that the moment like it happened, we were like planning, like getting the money ready, like however we had to do it, like scrambling up whatever we could, and then like getting someone in our boat, like someone with a little bit more like legal knowledge and paperwork with the government knowledge, because my family had never done this kind of stuff before, right? So we didn't want to mess it up. And we did all that. I remember that I was super excited because I knew like when I was that age that like I was gonna be one of like the trailblazers to start with something that could be turned into something great. And looking back on it, it has been turning into something great. I've seen a lot of people from a little bit younger than me coming through, lots of talented people, smart, engaged, hardworking, and also like a year or so of the people ahead of me that filed right immediately as it came out. Those like 3 months and stuff, the people in the backlog is what I would like to call them, like people that were already working, hustling, going to college, even undocumented maybe. And I didn't want to let them down, you know, like I'm here with all these opportunities that they didn't have. I see them going out and getting it. I had to do it for them too, you know.
Yep, definitely. Karina, do you remember where you were and what you felt?
Yeah, so we had a family group chat with my family, and my mom texted me, and she sent like it was like a cutout of the article, and she was like, look, like this is gonna change everything, and she was so excited. And I remember like I wanted to cry, but I was in front of all these people, so I couldn't. So I was like, keep it together, keep it together. And I did keep it together, but my mom texted me saying like, just wait until you come back from school, like we're gonna fill it out. And that was the day that we sit down in the living room and we fill it out. My sister did have to wait a few years though, like it was like a year, I think, to be able to apply. So that was very nice when she got it too.
That's awesome. Brayan, would you like to elaborate on the day you found out? I know that was a very emotional for you.
Yeah, I mean, nothing different that I said earlier, like just coming from soccer practice and, you know, you just live your day and live that day, whatever. And then just coming home and seeing our TV living room, just, it was live, and it was just like, it's like one of those days, like, for example, like historical days or stuff like that, that like everyone remembers exactly who they were, like where they were, what emotions you had. Like that was one of those days for me.
Cool. And we've got some questions coming in, so please keep them coming in once we pivot to the Q&A for the audience members. But I just want to, you know, continue with another question for you three, and that is, what are some of the misconceptions you oftentimes hear from the community at large about DACA in general? So we'll start with Karina.
I think one of the biggest misconception that gets me very upset is that we're freeloaders, that we are taking advantage of government benefits, and we're not. Like we cannot even apply to them, or like we don't even qualify for them. That when unemployment with COVID happened, yeah, we're sending money to the security and we're putting money for unemployment, but we cannot use it. And like they did stated we could apply for it, but if you ever try to become a citizen, that will look bad on you, and they might reject your application just because you did use a benefit, which was your unemployment, even though it's your money, you're paying towards it. That upsets me a lot because we're not freeloaders. Like every DACA I met like works for their money and is working 2-3 jobs just to make meets end, which I'm not saying all older Americans don't do that, because I also agree that older Americans work very well. But that's one of the biggest misconception that I hear, that we're freeloaders or that we're criminals. That's another one. You do have to get a background check every 2 years, and now every year, to make sure that you haven't committed a crime.
Brayan, what's one of the biggest misconceptions you hear from the community at large about DACA?
I think for what I hear is, can you be a citizen? I think that's like mainly the number one or number two question I usually, if I'm explaining about it. So right now, DACA is not a pathway to citizenship. Like we stated before, it's kind of like this a temporary every 2 years. Well, it was every 2 years. Now it's like every year you have to renew it. But as of right now, that I'm aware of, the only way that you can become a U.S. citizen if you married someone who's a U.S. citizen. And that itself, that's a whole nother process, a whole nother, we could talk about that for an hour, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, we're just living in limbo. You know, these parameters, I look at the dates, you know, we don't play around with, at least I don't, with like the DACA and the expirations, because if it expires, you don't have a job, you know, you can't go to school, you can't do anything without that source. So, you know, I can't be a citizen right now. You know, maybe one day when I get married, then that's definitely a possibility. But, you know, we're fighting for it to be more permanent, because many individuals, just like myself, I came here when I was 3. I will be 25 next month. So I've been living in the US for 22 years. You know, we assimilated into the American culture. Quite frankly, my English is so much better than my Spanish, you know? And so I definitely consider myself like Guatemalan American. That's usually how I've been identifying myself, and being, you know, I've lived here for so long. So, yeah.
Jose, what's been one of the biggest misconceptions?
I want to take a different angle at the question, because sometimes I think that there's been some kind of division even among like our own community, or our own like immigrant community, that like DACA is its own like thing, and we don't have the same struggles that the other immigrants have. So I want to kind of touch on this. So one thing, and I was saving it, this is what I was saving, but I'm gonna get it out now. One of the main things with DACA is how uncertain DACA is. Like, because it's, we heard from the Supreme Court a little while ago, and that was a huge day. I'm sure that my panelists can remember that, and anybody else in the chat. That was a huge day for me, because I was a pessimist. I was almost certain it was gonna get overturned, but it didn't. So one of the biggest misconceptions that I see a lot is like, people think that because we're DACA, we're like on the way to like becoming U.S. citizen. Like, as far as I'm concerned, if they re-challenge it, we back in the limbo again, and we've been living in limbo for so many years that it's just like, that's what the biggest challenge of DACA is. Like, there's no security to it. There's no like how Brayan said, there's no it's basically, we're just here enjoying it. They getting our money, we're getting our money when we go to work and stuff. But it's kind of like it's a mutual relationship. We all benefited from it, but it's all like, maybe one day someone wants to go a different route, a different administration, take it a different place, and we're kind of back to square one, how me and Brayan and Karina were before we started our college journey, or during when we were starting our college journey. So I just want to make sure that misconception is cleared up. Like, DACA is not a sure thing by any means. We out here just kind of like enjoying the moment, you know? So YOLO, I guess, but it's not that fun when you have to plan for like 30 years, 40 years, when you want to be financially stable, when you want to have like your own houses, like Karina said. It's not that easy to make plans for something that you don't know how it's going to go, where it's going to go. You can just do contingency planning based on what happens by the day.
Yeah, and I'm actually really glad that you touched upon that, because it feeds into my next question, and we'll start with you, I suppose. But like, how do you feel being documented has affected your community involvement? And I think you touched upon it a lot in terms of like just having to make those contingency plans, like for different rulings for the Supreme Court, because a lot of people, I guess, they don't know that like your life could be in limbo. You know, you can't plan for the future. So how do you feel being documented has like, you know, affected your community involvement, if at all?
So I deal with a lot of Hispanic people in my industry, and they kind of say like, hey, like you must have DACA, like you're working at a big corporation and stuff, you're doing fairly well for yourself. And I always remind them that even though that is true, and I do have like some good involvement in the community, I'm still the same as you guys. I don't see myself superior to you guys. You guys are working hard, I'm working hard. We're all in it together, you know, trying to fight for the same cause of equality, equal for everybody, for equal work. But it does like kind of rub me the wrong way when someone thinks that they're better based on like what kind of status they have. Either if they're a citizen, they think they might be better than someone who's the DACA, and if they're DACA, they're better than someone who's undocumented and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure that we're all like understanding that we're all in this together. We're all Latinos. We're all people. We all have red blood. So I just want to make sure that I answered your question. I'm not sure if that's exactly the question. I just want to be as thorough as possible with it.
Kind of, yeah. Like, I think the question is more so like, do you feel like it's made you more of an activist or like an organizer? Do you feel like you always go above and beyond to like make sure people know about a certain topic? Or do you feel like if you were to be a citizen or something like that, you might be like, just like, you know, become a fly on the wall where you just like let things slide? Do you feel like being documented really like pushed you to the forefront and made you like a leader and said like, you know, I have to fight for this because if not, you know, other people will suffer or I myself will suffer too?
Well, it kind of gets at that same point that even though I am documented, I still try to look out for my undocumented friends or undocumented people that weren't in that cutoff or that DACA. Like, I still want to see them try and get like to a better place in life. Even for citizens, I know that they still try to get those people to a better place in life. I'm all about helping everybody, pushing everybody to get what they deserve in life based on their efforts and stuff like that. And if I was a citizen, I think I would still be that way, because we all know people who are still undocumented. We all know people who have citizenships, and we all know tons of DACA people. And everybody just deals, and you can kind of see how their life broken down because of that status.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I see it too in a lot of the community work that I do too. So Brayan, how do you feel like being documented has affected your community involvement?
I think very similarly with like everything that Jose said, but to piggyback off of that, I think, like I mentioned earlier, like when we were little, like my parents, we had a conversation about, you know, just what immigration was, where we're landing, but it was a secret, you know, like stuff like this. Like now, the things that we're doing now, having a panel and talking about it, this was tabooed 10, 15 years ago. Like there's no way, like even now, I don't think I would ever, like if you ask 14-year-old Brayan back then, I wouldn't tell anyone that about my status. Like it was a secret. And so I think after, you know, having DACA and then with our generation, I think we become more vocal and, you know, having these conversations, having what we're having now, a panel, an informational session, like things like that, just talking about it. I think that's very powerful because, like I said, just a couple years ago, it's something you don't talk about. And I believe that, you know, if you don't talk about it, how are people going to know? And I think it's our responsibility to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Karina?
Yeah, so going off of what Brayan said, I used to be ashamed to be DACA. Like I used to not tell anyone. Like it was a secret. Like it was such a big secret that I didn't tell my boyfriend for 2 years. And he wouldn't know. Like I just didn't want to tell anyone. Like I was afraid of telling people and them identifying my legal status. But then when I got to college, I realized that I needed to speak up and I needed to allow people to understand what like my legal status. And also like a lot of our parents have this mentality of if I stay quiet, I would just make it through. But I don't think so. I think we have to speak up about this issue and we have to raise awareness and let people know that this exists because a lot of people didn't know. And my parents did get upset with me. Like when I started speaking out about it and about what DACA was, like they thought I was putting myself in a big danger and allowing people to know who I was and using that against me. And I mean, until this day, they're afraid of that. But we have to speak up. If not, like who's going to do it?
Absolutely, yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. And you know, I think the more that people are aware of what it is and how to fight to make it better, hopefully we will have a better outcome. But we have 10 minutes left. I'm gonna jump between some audience questions. If you have them, please send them to me in the chat, and some of the questions that I have for you all. But we had a question from an audience member. They ask, without a social security number, how can you work? Brian said he worked at Walgreens. Just wondering how that was. And I think when you worked at Walgreens, you had already received your DACA, correct?
That is correct. So before DACA and having my social, the only way I made some money was I worked with my dad, and he paid me in cash. So like that helped. I mean, that was just kind of like my source of income, but I was 14, 15, 16 at the time. So I didn't like necessarily have to have a job, but I know other people that are older than me that were undocumented before DACA, they had other ways of working without a social.
For sure, yeah. And for those watching, what a lot of undocumented immigrants do is they create a business and pay taxes through a thing called your individual tax ID number, which is your I-10, and that's how a lot of undocumented immigrants do pay into a system that they receive no benefits from. So it's important to know that too. And another question for me is, if for those watching today could take away one thing from this webinar, what would it be? And we'll start off with Karina.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, you cut off.
Yeah, if for those watching, if they could take away one thing from today, from watching this webinar, what would it be?
I think it would be like what DACA is, like the definition of DACA. Like I think if you could take it away and explain it to your family at dinner or just with friends, that would be great. And like tell them a little bit about our story, like take away a little bit of our story and explain it to them, and the value that this program has for us and the misconceptions that we discussed. I think that would be a wonderful thing that you could do just to help like get the word out there that we're not what a lot of people think we are.
For sure. Jose?
I would say I like Karina's a lot. I think that's a really good one. But I would say that if for everybody in the panel listening to this at home or wherever you guys may be, I think the biggest takeaway from this should be that no matter what kind of obstacles you guys have in your life, anything and everything is possible, so long as you get the right people in your boat, so long as you follow the correct steps, like try and do well at everything you can, try and excel, be the best you can be, and by either brute working at it or by luck or by blessings, however you like to call it, you guys will be able to do whatever you guys like put your heads to. So that's my biggest thing with DACA. That was my blessing. You guys will receive your own blessing, and there's enough to go around for everybody.
Brian?
Wow, I mean, following Karina, Jose, that's tough. That's tough. The only thing that I would say or add to what they said was, I think just to be open-minded, just in general. Like if you don't know something, or someone from strive to talk to someone from a different background or that's different from you in any way, shape, or form, and just listen to their story, because I think we all have a story to tell, in any kind of way. And I think what we need more is just be open-minded, listen to someone's story, try to meet someone new that's maybe different in some way, and just take the time to get to know them. Because I think at the end of the day, we're all humans, we all live on the same planet. Like at the end of the day, if we can just strive to be open-minded and just kind of understand the other person or hear their story, take the time to just listen, I think that would be my biggest takeaway.
For sure, yeah. And so for one of the audience members who had a question in the chat, they ask, so I'm a citizen of the United States and I want to help my brother get DACA. What should I do? And I know a lot of the quickest step is to just consult an immigration attorney so that they can evaluate their case more thoroughly than any of us could. Do any three of you have any quick advice for that?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
So the requirements are all posted on the United States Immigration Services website. Just go through those real quick, try and check them off. Of course, if you want to go the safest route, a lawyer would be the safest route, but you don't have to get a lawyer. You can try and see if he meets those requirements. Of course, if he doesn't, you know, he's probably ineligible, and that'd be really sad. But just the worst case scenario is just check, you know.
Yeah, so adding up to that, at the moment, like they're not taking any new applications. So if you don't have DACA already, like you can renew it if you want to, but you cannot apply for new DACA members. I try to help a person, and then that's when the administration decided that the Supreme Court ruling was not good enough, so they stopped all the new renewals. So she got her money back in her application. So at the moment, I think we're on hold.
I will say though, real quick, even though it's on hold, have your documents ready. I know with me, it took me about a year or so for me to get my DACA, even after when it was first introduced. And the reason being because I needed to get my Guatemalan birth certificate translated. And so, like having all the documents ready to go, because even though it's not open yet, you know, if you have those documents ready to go, as soon as the day it's back on, you know, go ahead and submit it. So just have the documents ready, birth certificates, anything from the home country translated into English, all of that stuff, have it ready to go.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really great advice. And as we wrap up, we only have 4 minutes. I really want to wrap up with a really question that's really present in a lot of people's minds for DACA. If it's revoked, can you be deported? And what does it mean for current dreamers, you know? And I guess whoever wants to take that up, please answer. Karina, what do you like? Or Jose, too?
At the
I
same
can go.
time,
Yeah.
Karina, you're up.
Okay. If we get revoked, we do become undocumented. So technically, according to the law, we are able to get deported. What means for that, like current dreamers, is like we were talking about earlier, we're in limbo. Like we don't know what's gonna happen, and we're just trying to make the best time that we have here, like as best as we can, and do everything right. So if hopefully, let's be positive, it doesn't get revoked, and maybe I'm too hopeful, but I think is like pathway to citizenship or residency will be coming our way, and that will be the only way that this situation will be fixed.
Would you like to add anything, Jose?
I was more or less gonna say similar. If it's revoked, you know, that's a huge hit to everybody. Like I said, we're right now we're kind of engaging like a mutual beneficial agreement with the United States government. So yeah, I think it'd be lose-lose. A lot of like good talent, Karina, you know, Brayan, Jose. There's probably how many hundreds of thousands of people like us. So they'll everybody would lose probably, and we get back into obscurity, back into the IT jobs, you know. So stuff like that, I think, is probably not the best way forward. And I think most people are on the same page as that. It's just what to do about other stuff that's always like the politics.
Yeah, definitely. And just for clarification, so DACA is basically deferment from deportation proceedings. So at the moment that it's revoked, they're all exposed to being deported by ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. So the more conscious building that we can do about this topic, and the more quickly we get our government to really produce a more swift you know, status for these individuals, the better off we'll all be, because like these three phenomenal individuals have said, they are, you know, wonderful contributors to our country. And I know for the other 800,000 DACA recipients that exist in our country, they are too. So definitely, we wish them the best, and we hope that going forward, our country can create a better pathway for them to have more permanent status here in our country. And with that, that really wraps up this wonderful webinar, this informative, thought-provoking webinar. I thank all of the panelists. Thank you, Joanne, for putting this on, and I'll leave you all with Carrie to see if she has any words to wrap everything up.
Great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you to all of our panel members to bring us all this great information about DACA and any of the misconceptions that are there to provide us all this information. Thank you to GOAL Amigos for hosting this event. And also thank you to HLCNI for partnering as well. Before we end, I do want to go ahead and provide that participation link. And I also want to share some information about some other passive events that we have that you can participate in to learn more about DACA and reflect. So first, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You can record your participation for this DACA presentation one of two ways. You can use your phone or mobile device to snap this QR code, or you can type in this link to your web browser, link.ivytech.edu, join DACA Prez. Once you do that, it will link you to our Ivy Life page with a note that says your participation has been logged. That's it. Doing this will track your participation and also generate an email that gives an opportunity for post-event feedback. It will also enter you into our drawing for an end-of-semester prize. In addition to today's presentation, we also added a TED Talk activity available to view and reflect. This TED Talk highlights Giancarlo Tejeda, another DACA recipient. He speaks out on behalf of his community and as a student and activist. To view this event, visit link.ivytech.edu/TED-Talk-DACA. If you view the TED Talk and complete the post-event reflection form indicated on the event info, you will have another opportunity to win a $25 gift card.